And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Thursday, December 7th. We have a lot to talk about on the show. As we normally do, before I get into that, I just want to remind you guys to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you, the viewer. Again, that is streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And as always, is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that, let's get right into what we are going to talk about for today. So starting off the show, we'll talk about who should start at quarterback for the Browns moving forward. Because obviously, we got to see the return of Joe Flacco on Sunday, which was which you didn't expect, but that's where the Browns are at right now. So we'll talk about that in a second. We'll get into we'll give my early thoughts on the. We'll go into more detail tomorrow when we pick the games, but we'll talk about the Cowboys and the Eagles game and the level of importance going into the game. So we'll get into that. Then in the third part of the show, we'll get into the Jets going back to Zach Wilson. So we'll give a little update on what's going on with the Jets and their quarterback situation. And then in the final part of the show, we're going to preview tonight's game between the Patriots and the Steelers. Now, in the past, that matchup used to be very enticing. Tonight, not so much, but we will get into it. We'll talk about it. That is the first game that'll kick us off for Week 14 in the NFL. So that'll be how we wrap up the show for the day. So let's get right into the first topic, which is talking about who the Browns should start at quarterback on Sunday. So like I said, Joe Flacco, he was the starting quarterback on Sunday for the Browns because of the injuries that they've been dealing with, at quarterback. Obviously, Deshaun Watson out for the year with the shoulder injury. DTR is still in concussion protocol. And I guess they just really do not want to go back to PJ Walker. So that's why they brought in Joe Flacco. And, Flacco didn't play that bad. He did throw the pick late in the game, but he did throw for over 250 yards. He had a touchdown in the game to Jerome Ford. I feel like for me, I think you kind of, and I think someone put it perfectly. You kind of just play him till, he doesn't play well, and then you go back to DTR. Because, when you're comparing the two quarterbacks, obviously Joe Flacco, between him and DTR, Joe Flacco is the more experienced quarterback. But it's kind of limited on what you can do with him because he's a pocket passer. He's not like DTR who's going to be more mobile. So there are pros and cons to it. But I think more experienced, he's got the bigger arm. I think you probably go with Flacco still, and then you ride it out until he doesn't play well, and then you go back to DTR. Because it's important also because the Browns are right now in a playoff spot, and I don't think they want to miss out on it, regardless of what, their quarterback position has been like, in recent weeks. So I think, for me, I probably stick with Flacco, and then if you have to go back to DTR, you do go back to DTR. But I just wanted to take a look at the Browns' schedule. So they play the Jaguars this week, and it still remains to be seen on whether or not Trevor Lawrence is going to play for this game at the moment. And if he doesn't, that helps the Browns out. Because obviously if Trevor Lawrence is playing, that gives them less of a chance to win. Then they're at home against the Bears, which I think is, a winnable game. At the Texans is going to be tough. That's going to be a tough game. Then they're home against the Jets, and then they're at the Bengals, who, have Jake Browning as their starting quarterback. But Jake Browning just played very well against Jacksonville. So if you get the Jake Browning that was carving up that Jaguars defense, that's going to be a problem. But the Browns defense, I think people will say, is better than the Jaguars. So the Browns have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Although people have called it overrated, because you know what, Yeah, they do give up a lot of points. You know, we saw against the against the Ravens, there was a lot of points they gave up, even though, part of that was a pick six that Deshaun Watson threw earlier in that game. The Colts game, I think, is one thing that everybody will go back to and say, yeah, the Browns did not play well. I think the final score in that game was like 39-38, I think. Um, so yeah, this Browns defense can give up, some points, but right now they're 7-5, and you look at the other teams that are behind them. You have the Steelers right now, who have the tiebreaker, so they have the fifth seed. The Browns have the sixth. Then you got the Colts at the seven. But yeah, you got the Texans there. You got the Broncos there. The Broncos already beat the Browns, so they got the tiebreaker over them. The Browns have the tiebreaker over the Bengals. If the Bengals win on Sunday and the Browns lose, they still have the tiebreaker over them. You got the Bills there as well. So we'll see. It's just unfortunate what's happened with the Browns this year because they've had a ton of injuries. I mean, to their quarterback position and also to the running back position. Like they had to bring back Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb obviously getting hurt earlier in the season-ending knee injury, that he suffered in Week 2 against the Steelers on that Monday night. It's been a tough go for the Browns. And DTR, listen, he hasn't, lit up the stat sheet yet. And, I think the Browns are hoping that they get, something out of him because, let's be honest, the Deshaun Watson trade is not looking good right now. So if DTR can, maybe, develop into a good quarterback, at least they have a backup plan. Because right now, in the games that he's played, he has 429 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions, quarterback rating of 50.6. So that's not great, obviously. His first start came against the Ravens. He had 3 picks, no touchdowns. He did come in for a bit against Seattle on October 29th. Did start against the Steelers. Again, really didn't do much. 165 yards passing, no touchdowns and a pick, but they won the game at least. And then against the Broncos, he went 14-29, 134 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And then, of course, he left the game with, concussion, and he's been in concussion protocol. But yeah, I mean, Flacco, like he went 23-44, 254 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick, and his quarterback rating is 75.4. But yeah, I mean, then you look at PJ Walker, his quarterback ratings of 52.2, 1 touchdown to 5 interceptions. He's got 674 yards passing. And again, it's not like Deshaun Watson was doing really well. I mean, he got hurt. He missed some games this year before, suffering the season-ending shoulder injury. He had over 1,100 yards passing, 7 touchdowns to 4 picks. His quarterback rating was 84.3. So, the Browns, yeah, they need better quarterback play. Now, they're in a tough spot. I mean, bringing in Flacco, I don't think was a bad move. Because I think Flacco could do okay with, and he did do okay. I mean, his first half was better than his second half, but the Browns have weapons on the offense, so it's not like Flacco's going in there and he's got nothing to really work with. I mean, the Browns have good skill position players, so he was stepping into a good situation, but. And I talked about this. If he went to the Jets, I mean, when he was with the Jets last year, you got, rookie Breece Hall, rookie Garrett Wilson, and that was kind of it, really. They also had Corey Davis too, as well. Elijah Moore, who's actually now on the Browns now. But he's in a better situation than he was last year. Now, again, I don't really expect. I mean, imagine Flacco goes on a Super Bowl run. That would be unbelievable if that happened. But it's not going to happen. Yeah, that Joe Flacco is not around anymore. This is now backup Joe Flacco. Now, I mean, it's crazy to think that he was a Raven. All those years, and that Super Bowl run he went on where he beat Peyton Manning and Tom Brady on the road to get to the Super Bowl. One of the best Super Bowls, one of the greatest Super Bowls ever, was between the Ravens and the 49ers that year. And those two teams will play each other this year, and that could be a Super Bowl preview. Flacco, it's a tough spot to have to come in, at this point in the season, and help this team make the playoffs, but they can still make it. Flacco. The other thing too is like Flacco, they're not going to ask him to do a lot. When he has to, he's going to have to. But, you got a good running game. You have a good defense, so it's really going to be up to Flacco to just kind of manage the game, But I think that's kind of what you got to do at this point. You ride it with Flacco, and then you go from there. If he just really just does not play well, this week, then you put back in DTR, and if DTR can stay healthy, then you kind of just roll with him going forward, and you see if you can make it. Because, the Browns right now are still in a playoff spot, but, again, that could change very quickly. They got some big games coming up on their schedule, like I said before. So, it's tough. And like I said, they got put into a bad spot, of course, with Deshaun Watson getting hurt. But I think you got to hope that DTR can maybe develop into a good player. I don't really know if that's going to happen. But, at least like I said before, if the Deshaun Watson stuff does not work, if Deshaun Watson does not pan out, at least you have DTR who could step in and, take over. But listen, it all goes back to Baker Mayfield. Maybe you should have just kept Baker and, tried to work it out with him. But, they thought they were doing the right thing. Deshaun Watson, yeah, if they had the opportunity to get Deshaun Watson, and, Deshaun Watson at one point was one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but that was a long time ago. It feels like an eternity ago, because a lot of stuff has happened since then, off the field, and now he didn't look like the same quarterback. So, listen, the Browns, they made the playoffs with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. Baker played well, but they thought they were doing the right thing by getting Deshaun Watson and shipping Baker out, and yeah, they're kind of still dealing with quarterback issues, even with the Deshaun Watson deal. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it's unfortunate for the fan base of that team, because they're just desperate for a winning season. Well, they got a winning season, but they just want to see their team win. They want to see their team win some playoff games here. Go far in the playoffs. They did get a playoff win, which Baker Mayfield was the quarterback of, but it just seems like it looked like they were taking a step forward, and now they've taken steps back since then. And now the quarterback position, it's been tough. So, but let me know what you guys think. What should the Browns do at quarterback? Do they ride it out with Flacco, or do they go back to DTR, or do they go to PJ Walker? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. So with that, we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the level of importance of this Cowboys-Eagles matchup, the NFC East rematch here. It's a big game on Sunday, and we'll talk about it. I'll give my early thoughts on that in the second part of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.